In this video, we'll look into some of the most complex and often hidden stories from the American justice system. These are the cases of gay and lesbian individuals who ended up on death row or behind bars. We'll walk through the crimes, trials, final moments, and the human details behind each name. As always, let us know in the comments where you're watching from and how these stories impact your view of justice. Now, let's begin with the first case, a name you might already know. John Wayne Gacy. John Wayne Gacy, known as the Killer Clown, remains one of the most infamous serial killers in American history. But behind the headlines and the painted smile was a life marked by secrets, duality, and unspeakable crimes. Gacy's journey to death row began in the suburbs of Chicago in the 1970s, where he presented himself as a model citizen, active in local Democratic politics, a successful contractor, even a beloved performer at children's parties. Yet, beneath that respectable exterior, Gacy was a predator. Gacy targeted young men and boys, often luring them to his home with the promise of work or parties. There, the situation would turn. He sexually assaulted and murdered his victims, burying many beneath the floorboards of his house. By the time police uncovered his crimes, at least 33 lives had been lost. The investigation shocked the nation, both for its scale and for the revelation that the killer was a trusted neighbor. During his trial, Gacy's sexuality was brought up frequently in the press, although he never publicly identified as gay or bisexual. Still, his pattern of targeting young men fueled public and media speculation. Some saw his crimes as linked to his sexual orientation, while others saw it as the product of deep-seated trauma, secrecy, and societal rejection. The prosecution painted him as remorseless, calculating, and uniquely dangerous. After years of appeals, John Wayne Gacy was executed by lethal injection in Illinois in 1994. His last meal, KFC, fried chicken, French fries, and a pound of strawberries. Asked for final words, he reportedly said, "Kiss my ass." In the end, Gacy's case became a cautionary tale about evil hidden in plain sight, about society's fear of what it doesn't understand, and about the darkness that can thrive in secrecy. But for the families, the pain never truly ended. Aileen Wuornos. On a cold January day in 2002, Aileen Wuornos was executed by lethal injection in Florida. Her life and death became the stuff of documentaries, films, and debate about crime, gender, and sexuality in America. But Wuornos' story began long before the headlines, in a childhood marked by abuse, abandonment, and the harsh realities of survival. Wuornos identified as a lesbian and worked as a sex worker along Florida highways. Between 1989 and 1990, she shot and killed 7 men, claiming they tried to assault her while she was working. She insisted, at times, that she acted in self-defense, but the prosecution argued otherwise. The jury saw her as cold and predatory, shaped by trauma but still fully responsible for her actions. The media fixated on her sexuality, often sensationalizing her relationship with her lover, Tyria Moore, and casting her as the archetype of the monster. But for some, Wuornos was as much a victim as a perpetrator, a person failed by every system meant to protect her, from childhood on. Her trial became a spectacle, and her mental health was questioned until the very end. On death row, Wuornos' final days were marked by erratic behavior. For her last meal, she declined the traditional spread, accepting only a cup of coffee. Her final words were, "I'd just like to say I'm sailing with the rock, and I'll be back, like Independence Day, with Jesus." Her life and crimes continue to provoke questions about justice, the limits of empathy, and the blurred lines between victim and perpetrator. Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer is a name that still chills to the bone. Known as the Milwaukee Cannibal, Dahmer was convicted of murdering 17 men and boys between 1978 and 1991. His crimes went beyond murder. He committed acts of necrophilia and cannibalism, horrifying even the most seasoned detectives. Dahmer was openly gay, frequenting bars and clubs in Milwaukee's gay community, often targeting young men of color. His sexuality became part of the public conversation, not just as a fact of his life, but as a point of controversy, with many arguing that police indifference to gay victims allowed him to continue his spree for so long. Dahmer himself said he struggled with self-loathing and a desperate desire for connection, a twisted need that drove his horrific acts. Arrested in 1991, Dahmer confessed in detail to his crimes, showing little emotion but offering chilling insights into his mind. At trial, his defense argued insanity, but the jury disagreed. Sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms, Dahmer was sent to Columbia Correctional Institution in Wisconsin. He didn't survive long inside. In 1994, Jeffrey Dahmer was beaten to death by another inmate, ending his life at age 34. In a rare moment of humanity, Dahmer reportedly asked for no special privileges, no last meal, just an ordinary prison routine. His story is a grim reminder of what can happen when warning signs are ignored, and when society fails its most vulnerable, both victims and perpetrators alike. Michael Alig. In the neon-lit world of 1990s New York nightlife, Michael Alig was a legend before he was a criminal. Known as the flamboyant, openly gay leader of the Club Kids, Alig orchestrated outrageous parties that drew celebrities, outcasts, and thrill-seekers alike. Underneath the glitter and chaos, though, a darker current flowed. Alig's spiral into crime began with drugs, rivalry, and a friendship gone fatally wrong. The crime that ended his reign took place in March 1996. Andre "Angel" Melendez, a fellow club kid and drug dealer, got into a heated dispute with Alig and his roommate, Robert "Freeze" Riggs, allegedly over money and drugs. The argument escalated quickly in Alig's apartment. In the chaos, Melendez was attacked, beaten with a hammer, suffocated, and eventually killed. What followed was a cover-up both gruesome and bizarre. Melendez's body was stored in a bathtub for days, then dismembered, and finally thrown into the Hudson River. For months, Melendez was simply missing. Rumors circulated, but the world of nightclubs and secrecy kept the truth at bay. It wasn't until Riggs, racked with guilt, confessed to police in November 1996 that the story broke open. Alig was arrested soon after. The press swarmed the case, painting Alig as both a cautionary tale and a villain. At trial, Michael Alig faced a mountain of evidence and a city eager for closure. Rather than go to trial, Alig pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter. The court sentenced him to 10 to 20 years in prison. He served his sentence at various New York State prisons, becoming the subject of documentaries and films. Alig was released in 2014 after 17 years. He tried to re-enter the nightlife scene, but the shadow of his crime never faded. His freedom didn't last long. On Christmas Day, 2020, Michael Alig died of a heroin overdose in his Manhattan apartment. There would be no second act, only a tragic ending to a life that burned too bright, too fast, and left devastation in its wake. His story is a stark warning about the dangers of excess, the lure of fame and the consequences that come when the party finally stops. Paula Poundstone. Paula Poundstone's comedy was known for its wit and warmth, but in 2001, her name made headlines for reasons no fan could have imagined. That year, the openly lesbian comedian was arrested in California on charges of felony child endangerment and lewd acts with a minor, allegations that threatened to destroy her career and personal life in an instant. The case began when allegations surfaced regarding Poundstone's conduct as a foster parent. Authorities alleged she had endangered her foster and adopted children, including accusations of inappropriate conduct. Poundstone immediately denied the more serious allegations of lewd conduct, maintaining her innocence. The resulting investigation was intense and highly publicized. In the end, many of the most serious charges were dropped for lack of evidence. Nevertheless, Paula Poundstone pleaded no contest to a lesser charge, child endangerment, specifically for driving while intoxicated with her children in the car. At trial, her attorneys emphasized that Poundstone had struggled with alcoholism, and she was willing to face responsibility for putting her children at risk through impaired driving, but nothing more. She was sentenced to 5 years probation, required to attend rehabilitation and counseling, and temporarily lost custody of her children. Her sentence was carried out. Poundstone completed her probation, attended rehab, and slowly rebuilt her career. The case haunted her for years, casting a long shadow over her public life. But she persisted, returning to comedy stages and the radio, and becoming an outspoken advocate for foster children and for recovery from addiction. Today, Paula Poundstone is a testament to resilience. She openly discusses her struggles, the pain of public scandal, and her journey through the justice system. While her brush with the law nearly ended everything, she ultimately reclaimed her place in the public eye, reminding us that sometimes justice means a chance for redemption. Sarah Aldrate. Sarah Aldrate's descent into infamy began not in the United States, but along the borderlands where crime, cults, and chaos collide. In the late 1980s, Aldrate, a college student from Matamoros, Mexico, was drawn into the orbit of Adolfo Constanzo, a charismatic and dangerous cult leader who practiced a mixture of Santeria, voodoo, and drug trafficking. Their group, quickly dubbed the Narco-Satanists by the media, carried out a series of ritualistic killings, acts they believed would grant them supernatural protection for their drug business. The crime that brought international attention occurred in 1989 when Mark Kilroy, a Texas college student, vanished during spring break in Matamoros. After weeks of searching, authorities traced Kilroy's disappearance to a ranch used by Constanzo's cult. There, they discovered not only Kilroy's remains, but evidence of at least a dozen other ritual killings. Aldrate's role was pivotal. She was known as La Madrina, or the Godmother, allegedly helping to organize and lead the group. She was arrested in Mexico after a dramatic police raid that left Constanzo dead. At trial, Aldrate faced a barrage of charges, multiple counts of murder, kidnapping, and involvement in organized crime. She denied being the mastermind, claiming she too was a victim, forced to participate out of fear for her life. The court did not accept her defense. Aldrate was sentenced to over 60 years in Mexican prison. Unlike the American death penalty cases, her sentence meant life behind bars, with little hope of parole. She remains imprisoned to this day. Aldrate's story is a dark warning about the allure of power, the danger of manipulation, and the ways that belief can turn deadly. Her punishment, fully carried out, continues as the years pass behind the walls of a Mexican penitentiary. Aaron Hernandez. Aaron Hernandez's rise and fall is a story that stretches from the heights of athletic glory to the depths of the prison system. A star tight end for the New England Patriots, Hernandez seemed to have it all: fame, fortune, and a future filled with promise. But that illusion shattered in June 2013, when police arrived at his Massachusetts home to question him about the murder of Odin Lloyd, a semi-pro football player and friend. Within days, Hernandez was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. The evidence was overwhelming. Surveillance footage, ballistics, and witnesses all pointed toward him. The case shocked the sports world. Here was a young, wealthy athlete at the top of his game, now in handcuffs. The trial in 2015 was relentless. Hernandez's defense tried to cast doubt, but the prosecution argued a clear motive, opportunity, and method. After weeks of testimony, the jury found him guilty. Hernandez was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. While in prison, Hernandez faced another trial for a separate double homicide but was acquitted. Still, rumors and later investigations revealed Hernandez's struggles with mental health, trauma, and his sexual orientation. After his death, friends and family confirmed that Hernandez had relationships with men, a truth he never felt safe revealing in life. On April 19, 2017, Hernandez was found dead in his prison cell. His death ruled a suicide. He left behind questions about the toll of hiding one's identity, the role of football-related brain injuries, and the tragedy of a life undone by violence, both his own and the violence he inflicted. His sentence, a life term, was tragically cut short by his own hand, and the story of Aaron Hernandez remains a cautionary tale about secrecy, fame, and the high cost of unaddressed pain. Bayard Rustin. Bayard Rustin is not a name found on most lists of criminals, but his presence here speaks volumes about justice, prejudice, and the changing tides of American law. In 1953, Rustin was already well known as a civil rights organizer, a pacifist, and an advocate for nonviolent protest. But that year, in Pasadena, California, his life was upended when he was arrested on morals charges. The crime? Consensual sex with another man at a time when homosexuality was criminalized. Rustin's arrest, trial, and conviction were public and humiliating. The judge sentenced him to 60 days in jail. For Rustin, this wasn't just a personal blow. It was weaponized by his political opponents to try and silence his voice. Even within the civil rights movement, some leaders distanced themselves, fearing that Rustin's sexuality would undermine their cause. But Rustin did not let his sentence define him. He served his time and returned to activism, organizing the 1963 March on Washington and working as a close advisor to Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. The morals charge remained a stigma for years, but over time, Rustin's legacy grew. Decades later, he was posthumously awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and his conviction became a symbol of unjust laws that criminalized love and identity. Rustin's sentence was carried out, but history ultimately vindicated him. His courage, vision, and willingness to fight for justice in the face of both racism and homophobia helped change the country. Today, Bayard Rustin is honored not as a criminal, but as a hero. Thank you for watching this deep dive into some of the most complex and hidden stories from the U.S. justice system. Our goal isn't to sensationalize, but to educate, spark conversation, and honor both the progress made and the struggles that remain. If this video made you think, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue to bring thoughtful, meaningful stories to light. Until next time, take care. And remember, justice isn't just about laws, but about people.